Sean interrupts John's late-night writing session. His father's reaction leaves Yoko in tears. New York City, late 1970s. The Dakota Building, a Gothic sentinel overlooking Central Park, held within its ancient walls a world both opulent and intensely private. For John Lennon, it was more than just an address. It was a sanctuary, a self-imposed exile from the relentless glare of fame, a place where he sought to redefine himself, not as a Beatle, but as a man. The city outside roared with its usual cacophony, but within their apartment, a profound quiet often reigned. John had retreated from the public eye, embracing the role of house husband, nurturing his young son, Sean. This was his house husband period, a deliberate, almost monastic devotion to domesticity, a stark contrast to the frenetic, globe-trotting life of his past. Yet the ghosts of that past were never far. The echoes of screaming fans, the weight of a generation's expectations, and most poignantly, the lingering regret of a distant fatherhood to his first son, Julian. These shadows often crept into the quiet corners of his mind, especially during the late hours. When the world slept and his creative impulses stirred, he would often find himself in his music room or at a small desk in the living room, long after Yoko and Sean had gone to bed. These were his sacred hours, a time for introspection, for wrestling with melodies and lyrics, for attempting to capture the complex tapestry of his evolving soul. The creative process was a solitary journey, a deep dive into the wellspring of his being, often accompanied by a cup of tea and the silent companionship of the city lights twinkling outside his window. Yoko understood this need for solitude. She respected his creative space, his nocturnal rituals. She knew that these late-night sessions were not just about making music, they were about healing, about processing the immense weight of his life, about finding a new voice, a new purpose. She would often leave him to his work, trusting in his process, knowing he would emerge, eventually, with something profound. But tonight, the carefully maintained order of their quiet world was about to be subtly yet profoundly disrupted. A small, unexpected intrusion, a break in the sacred solitude, would trigger a chain of events that would peel back the layers of the legendary musician, revealing a deeply human man grappling with his past, embracing his present, and forever altering the unspoken truths of his most cherished role, that of a father. The stage was set, not for a concert, but for an intimate, unscripted drama, played out in the silent echoes of the Dakota, a moment that would leave Yoko in tears and the world to ponder the true nature of John Lennon's final, most cherished legacy. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content that's coming up. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. John Lennon, in the late 1970s, was an alchemist of domesticity, transforming the raw material of daily life into something profound. New York City, with its relentless energy, served as a backdrop to his quiet revolution. He had traded stadium roars for lullabies, press conferences for playdates, and the relentless demands of fame for the simple, profound rhythms of fatherhood. His life at the Dakota was a deliberate act of defiance against the very forces that had once consumed him. He was a man who had preached peace to millions, and now he was living it one quiet moment at a time. He cooked, he cleaned, he baked bread, he raised his son. These were not mere chores. They were rituals, acts of love, a profound re-engagement with the simple, tangible realities of existence. Yet, the artist still simmered beneath the surface. The creative impulse, though channeled differently, was never truly extinguished. His late-night writing sessions were a testament to this, a private communion with his muse, a space where he could wrestle with melodies and lyrics, attempting to capture the complex tapestry of his evolving soul. He was searching for a new voice, a new truth, in the quiet corners of his own making. The public, when they thought of John Lennon, still envisioned the rebellious rock star, the political firebrand. They rarely saw the man who meticulously planned Sean's meals, who spent hours teaching him to draw, who read him bedtime stories with a tenderness that belied his public image. This was a hidden truth, a secret life lived away from the cameras, away from the expectations. But even in this sanctuary, the shadows of his past lingered. The regret over his relationship with Julian, his first son, was a constant, subtle ache. He had been a distant father, consumed by fame, by ambition, by the tumultuous demands of the Beatles. He had tried to make amends, to bridge the chasm, but the wounds were deep, the opportunities often fleeting. Sean, his second chance, was a profound gift, a chance to rewrite a painful chapter, to embody the father he wished he had been. Yoko understood this. She saw the profound transformation in him, the quiet devotion that had replaced the restless energy of his earlier years. She knew that his intense focus on Sean was not just about love for their son, but about healing old wounds, about seeking a form of redemption. She protected his space, his time with Sean, recognizing its sacred importance. He carried the weight of his own history, the early abandonment, the loss of his mother, the relentless drive to prove himself. These were the unseen scars that shaped his art, his activism, his often unpredictable behavior. He was a man who preached peace, yet often found himself embroiled in conflict, both external and internal. The contradictions were a constant companion, a shadow that followed him from the recording studio to the quiet intimacy of his home. He was a man of paradoxes, a walking enigma, even to himself, perpetually searching for a sense of belonging, a sense of peace that always seemed just out of reach. The public saw the headlines, the controversies, the carefully crafted image. They saw the rock star, the icon, but behind the dark glasses, in the quiet moments between the chaos, John Lennon was a man grappling with his own humanity, his own flaws, his own profound sense of responsibility. He was searching for something real, something true, in a world that constantly demanded artifice. He was an open wound, exposed to the world, yet desperately trying to heal, to find a new path, a new voice, in the cacophony of his own fame. The stage was set, not for a concert, but for an intimate, unscripted drama, a confrontation with his own past, a moment that would peel back the layers of myth and reveal the raw, beating heart beneath. A heart that, despite its fame, was fiercely devoted to his son, and utterly vulnerable to the profound power of paternal love. The hour was late. The city outside the Dakota's thick walls hushed into a rare, almost reverent silence. Inside, John Lennon sat at his small writing desk, a single lamp casting a warm, intimate glow over scattered papers, half-filled notebooks, and a well-worn acoustic guitar. A half-empty teacup steamed gently beside him. He was deep in the throes of creation, wrestling with a melody, a lyrical phrase that danced just beyond his grasp. This was his sanctuary, his nocturnal ritual. The world slept, and John worked, translating the complex tapestry of his thoughts and emotions into the universal language of music. Yoko was asleep in their bedroom, the soft rhythm of her breathing a distant, comforting presence. The apartment felt vast, quiet, a perfect canvas for his restless mind. He strummed a chord, then another, searching for the right progression, the one that would unlock the song. His brow was furrowed in concentration, his eyes distant, lost in the intricate landscape of his inner world. He was a million miles away, immersed in the delicate dance between inspiration and craft. Then, a soft creak. A tiny shadow detached itself from the deeper darkness of the hallway. A small, pajama-clad figure, clutching a worn teddy bear, shuffled hesitantly into the living room. Sean. His hair was tousled, his eyes wide and sleepy, yet filled with a child's innocent curiosity. John, so deeply engrossed, didn't immediately notice. He continued to hum, to pluck at the strings, lost in his musical reverie. Sean took another tentative step, his bare feet making no sound on the plush carpet. He stood for a moment, observing his father, a silent, watchful presence. The lamp illuminated John's profile, the intensity of his concentration, the familiar curve of his nose, the hint of a smile playing on his lips as a new phrase began to form. Finally, Sean spoke, his voice a tiny, sleepy whisper that cut through the creative silence like a delicate chime. "Daddy?" John flinched, startled. His hand flew from the guitar, the chord dying abruptly. He turned, his eyes blinking, slowly refocusing from the abstract world of music to the tangible reality of his son. For a fleeting moment, a flicker of annoyance crossed his face, the artist's frustration at an interrupted flow. But then he saw Sean, small, vulnerable, his teddy bear clutched tight, his sleepy eyes filled with a mixture of apprehension and longing. The annoyance vanished, replaced by a profound tenderness, a sudden, overwhelming surge of paternal love. The music, the lyrics, the creative struggle, all faded into insignificance. "Sean?" John said, his voice soft, surprised. "What are you doing up, little man?" He pushed his chair back, the scrape of wood on the floor, a loud intrusion in the quiet room. Sean shuffled closer, his lower lip trembling slightly. "Had a bad dream, Daddy. Monster under the bed." He held out his teddy bear as if offering it as protection. John's heart ached. The image of the legendary rock star, the peace activist, the man who had faced down presidents and public opinion, dissolved. In its place was simply a father, confronted by the innocent fear of his child. The carefully constructed sanctuary of his late-night writing session had been breached, not by a fan or a critic, but by the most profound, most beautiful interruption imaginable. And in that small, pajama-clad figure, John saw not just his son, but a reflection of his own past, his own regrets, and the immense, unspoken truth of his second chance at fatherhood. The quiet of the Dakota apartment, once a sanctuary for John's creative solitude, was now filled with the soft, uncertain presence of his son. Sean, clutching his teddy bear, stood before him, a small, vulnerable figure against the backdrop of his father's scattered notes and silent guitar. The monster under the bed, a universal childhood fear, had momentarily eclipsed the complex monsters of John's adult world. John rose from his desk, the artist's concentration completely shattered, replaced by a profound, almost primal paternal instinct. He knelt down, bringing himself to Sean's eye level, his gaze soft, reassuring. "A monster, eh?" he murmured, his voice gentle, devoid of any hint of the rock star's swagger. "A big, scary one?" Sean nodded, his lower lip still trembling. "Big teeth and shadows?" John reached out, gently ruffling Sean's hair. "Well, you know what we do with monsters, don't you, little man?" he asked, a conspiratorial whisper. "We sing them away. We sing them right back to where they came from." He picked Sean up, cradling him in his arms. The small body felt warm, fragile, utterly dependent. This was a different kind of weight than a guitar, a different kind of responsibility than a global audience. This was the weight of pure, unconditional love, a love that had transformed him, healed him, given him a purpose beyond fame. He carried Sean back towards the bedroom, the path illuminated by the soft glow of the nightlights. Yoko, stirred by the quiet commotion, had emerged from the bedroom, her eyes still heavy with sleep, but instantly alert. She stood in the doorway, a silent observer, her heart swelling with a mixture of tenderness and a profound, almost painful understanding. She saw John, the legendary musician, the man who had once commanded stadiums, now gently rocking their son, his face etched with a tenderness she rarely saw in the harsh light of day. She saw the years of regret, the unspoken pain of his past fatherhood, melting away in the warmth of this intimate moment. John sat on the edge of Sean's bed, pulling the small boy onto his lap. He began to hum, a soft, wordless melody, a lullaby born of the moment, unwritten, unrecorded, meant only for the ears of his son. His voice, usually so powerful, so resonant, was now a gentle murmur, a soothing balm against the shadows. "No monster can stand a good song, can they, Sean?" he whispered, stroking Sean's hair. "Especially not a song from a brave little man like you." Sean, nestled securely in his father's arms, began to relax. The fear in his eyes slowly receded, replaced by a sleepy contentment. He listened to his father's voice, the familiar rhythm, the comforting presence. The monster, it seemed, was indeed being sung away. Yoko watched from the doorway, tears silently streaming down her face. They were not tears of sadness, but of profound joy, of gratitude, of a deep, aching recognition of the man John had become. She saw the healing, the redemption, the quiet triumph of love over regret. She saw the father he had always yearned to be, finally fully realized. This was the John Lennon the world rarely saw. Not the icon, not the idavist, not the controversial figure, but the father, vulnerable, tender, utterly devoted. This was the hidden truth, the secret life lived within the Dakota's walls, a life that was, in its quiet simplicity, more revolutionary than any anthem he had ever written. The unwritten lullaby, sung in the dead of night, was a testament to a love that transcended fame, a love that healed old wounds, a love that was, in its purest form, a profound act of peace. The soft, unwritten lullaby continued, a gentle melody weaving through the quiet of Sean's bedroom. John held his son close, his voice a tender murmur, chasing away the last vestiges of the monster under the bed. Yoko watched from the doorway, her tears now a steady, silent stream, each drop a testament to the profound emotional landscape unfolding before her. Sean, finally succumbing to the soothing rhythm of his father's voice, drifted back to sleep, his small hands still clutching his teddy bear. John gently laid him back in his bed, pulling the covers up, his movements slow, deliberate, filled with an almost sacred reverence. He lingered for a moment, watching his son's peaceful face, a profound tenderness etched on his own. He then turned, his eyes meeting Yoko's across the dimly lit room. There was no need for words. The unspoken confession hung in the air, a shared understanding that transcended language. He saw the tears on her face, and in them he recognized the echo of his own unspoken regrets, his own yearning for redemption. He walked over to her, his steps quiet, deliberate. He reached out, gently wiping a tear from her cheek. "He's all right now," he whispered, his voice still soft, imbued with the lingering tenderness of the lullaby. Yoko nodded, unable to speak, her throat tight with emotion. She leaned into his touch, finding solace in his presence, in the shared intimacy of the moment. She knew what this meant to him, this second chance at fatherhood, this opportunity to mend the broken pieces of his past. "I messed up, didn't I, Yoko?" John murmured, his gaze distant, lost in the shadows of his own memory. The question was not directed at her, but at himself, a quiet, painful introspection. "With Julian, I was so caught up, so selfish, so bloody blind." The words were a raw, unscripted confession, a rare glimpse into the depths of his lingering guilt. He had rarely spoken of it with such stark honesty, not even to her. The pain of his distant relationship with his first son was a wound he carried deep within, a shadow that often darkened his brightest moments. Yoko gently placed her hand on his cheek, her touch warm, reassuring. "You were young, John," she whispered, her voice filled with compassion. "And you were lost, and the world was a very different place then." She knew it was not an excuse, but an acknowledgement of the immense pressures that had shaped his early life, the relentless demands of fame that had often overshadowed his personal responsibilities. "No excuse," John said, shaking his head slowly. "A father should be there, always, no matter what." He looked back at Sean sleeping peacefully in his bed, a profound sadness in his eyes. "I missed so much of Julian's life. I won't do that again, not with Sean." His voice was thick with emotion, a raw vulnerability that brought fresh tears to Yoko's eyes. She saw the depth of his commitment, the profound transformation that had taken place within him. This was not just about Sean. It was about healing, about finding a form of absolution, about becoming the man he had always yearned to be. He pulled her close, holding her tightly, finding solace in her embrace. The unspoken confession had been made, the weight of his past acknowledged. And in that quiet, intimate moment, in the silent echoes of the Dakota, a new truth emerged. John Lennon, the legendary musician, was finding his greatest redemption not on a stage, but in the quiet, profound act of being a father, a husband, a man fully present in the lives of those he loved. The secret, unveiled in that late-night interruption, was the profound, healing power of paternal love, a love that could mend even the deepest of scars. The unspoken confession hung in the air, a fragile yet powerful bridge between John and Yoko. His raw admission of regret regarding Julian, his fierce vow to be present for Sean, had stripped away the last vestiges of the rock star's facade, revealing the deeply human man beneath. Yoko held him close, her tears a silent testament to the profound emotional landscape they had just traversed. The rest of the night passed in a quiet, almost sacred stillness. John returned to his writing desk, but the intensity of his creative focus had shifted. The music he now sought was not just for the world, but for his family, for the quiet moments of domesticity that had become his most cherished sanctuary. He strummed his guitar softly, the melodies infused with a new tenderness, a profound sense of purpose. The incident with Sean became a subtle yet powerful turning point. It solidified John's commitment to his house husband period, reinforcing his belief that his most important work now lay within the walls of the Dakota, nurturing his son, building a life of quiet contentment. He continued to write, to create, but the urgency, the frantic energy of his earlier years, was replaced by a more measured, reflective approach. He spent his days immersed in Sean's world. He taught him to bake bread, to draw, to play simple chords on the piano. He read him stories, invented games, and explored Central Park with the wide-eyed wonder of a child. These were not just fatherly duties. They were acts of profound healing, a deliberate effort to rewrite the narrative of his own past, to be the father he wished he had been for Julian. Yoko watched this transformation with a quiet joy. She saw the peace that had settled over John, the profound contentment that had replaced the restless energy of his earlier years. She knew that this period of domesticity was not a retreat from life, but a deeper engagement with it, a profound act of self-discovery and redemption. Their relationship, too, deepened, forged in the shared intimacy of their quiet life, strengthened by the unspoken understanding that had passed between them that night. The world outside still clamored for John Lennon, the Beatle, the icon. The phone still rang with offers, The media still speculated about his return, but John remained steadfast, his focus unwavering. He had found his true revolution, not in political anthems or stadium concerts, but in the quiet, profound act of being a present father, a loving husband, a man fully engaged with the simple, beautiful realities of everyday life. He carried the scars of his past, the regrets over Julian, but they no longer defined him. They had become lessons, reminders of the preciousness of time, the fragility of connection. Sean was his second chance, his living testament to the power of love and redemption. The unwritten lullaby, sung in the dead of night, had become the anthem of his new life, a melody of peace and profound contentment. The hidden truth, revealed in that small, unexpected interruption, was that John Lennon's greatest legacy was not just in the music he created, but in the man he became. He was the architect of a new dawn, not just for himself but for his family, building a sanctuary of love and presence that would forever alter the trajectory of his final, most cherished role. The late 1970s bled into the early 1980s, a period of profound quietude for John Lennon. The Dakota apartment remained his sanctuary, a fortress against the clamor of the world. The incident with Sean, the late-night interruption, had solidified his resolve, cementing his role as the devoted father, the house husband, the man who had found his greatest peace, not in fame, but in the profound simplicity of domestic life. He continued to write, to create, but the urgency, the frantic energy of his earlier years, was replaced by a more measured, reflective approach. His music became infused with a new tenderness, a profound sense of gratitude for the life he had built. He was crafting songs not just for the masses, but for his family, for the quiet moments of connection that had become his most cherished sanctuary. Yoko watched him, her heart full. She saw the man she had always known he could be, finally fully realized. The shadows of his past, the regrets over Julian, still lingered, but they no longer defined him. They had become lessons, reminders of the preciousness of time, the fragility of connection. Sean was his second chance, his living testament to the power of love and redemption. The world outside still clamored for John Lennon, the Beatle, the icon. The phone still rang with offers. The media still speculated about his return. But John remained steadfast, his focus unwavering. He had found his true revolution, not in political anthems or stadium concerts, but in the quiet, profound act of being a present father, a loving husband, a man fully engaged with the simple, beautiful realities of everyday life. He would often take Sean for walks in Central Park, just across from the Dakota. A familiar figure, often unrecognized by the casual passerby, a man in a simple coat, pushing a stroller, holding a small hand. These were his most public, yet most private moments. Moments of profound connection, of quiet joy, of a peace he had sought for so long. The unspoken melody of his life, the true soundtrack of his final years, was not a chart-topping hit, but the laughter of his son, the quiet hum of domesticity, the gentle rhythm of a life lived with purpose and presence. He was building a legacy not just of music, but of love, of healing, of a profound commitment to the people who mattered most. The secret, unveiled in that late-night interruption, was that John Lennon's greatest achievement was not the Beatles, not his solo career, not his activism. It was the quiet, profound transformation he underwent, the journey from a restless, searching soul to a man deeply rooted in the love of his family. It was the realization that the most powerful revolutions happen not in the streets, but in the heart, in the quiet moments of connection, in the profound act of being truly present. And then the world stopped. The night of December 8th, 1980. The quiet of the Dakota was shattered, not by a child's bad dream, but by a nightmare far more real, far more brutal. The man who had found his peace, who had embraced his role as a loving father, was taken, abruptly, violently, from the world he had so carefully cultivated. Yoko's tears that night were not of joy, but of an unimaginable grief. The unspoken melody of their life together, the quiet harmony of their family, was brutally silenced. But the echoes of that late-night interruption, the profound moment of paternal love, remained. It was a testament to the man he had become, the father he had fought so hard to be. The true legacy of John Lennon in those final, precious years was not just in the music he created, but in the profound, quiet love he cultivated within the walls of the Dakota. It was in the unwritten lullabies, the shared laughter, the simple, profound act of being a father. And that, perhaps, was the most revolutionary act of all, a secret whispered in the heart of New York City, a melody that continues to resonate long after the music has faded.